Indeed, Lewis Goodall doesn't see any problem with the systematic rape of our young women after the decision to import cultures that just don't share our values. No. That isn't the problem. What the problem is the radicalization of our discourse.
Someone who's been on X recently can see the level of profound racism which would once have been confined to the darkest corners of the mainstream internet and mainstream discourse, wouldn't have even been in public discourse, is so virulent, so ubiquitous, being rehearsed and rehashed by people who have got shows on television news channels.
But if you put together the potency of the issue of immigration, a lot of different posts on social media, plus the weather, plus people being out of school, you can see why some Matt in a government are worried and are nervous.
Media commentators, sort of more mainstream politicians need to be a bit more wary of their language as we see some of these themes develop.
The mainstream media's despicable decade-long gaslighting campaign to convince us, working with the political establishment, that if we're concerned about a whole-scale invasion of our country, both illegally and via legal means, putting our culture and young women at threat, then we're a far-right racist loon, has now failed. This weekend, Britain stands on the brink, with 14 migrant hotel protests planned up and down our disunited kingdom, while the terrorist loons of Palestine Action intend to stretch police resources to breaking point. But I think something has fundamentally changed. The independent media is revealing what's really going on, rendering the usual smears from the BBC's Newsnight and the fake news agents increasingly tone-deaf, irrelevant, and meaningless. There is now good reason to be terrified on the streets of England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. And it's not just old fogies, by the way, who are. 6 in 10 young people fear becoming victims of violent crime, according to a poll by the Adam Smith Institute that illustrates a generation that feels increasingly unsafe in their own homes. We are constantly seeing illegals threaten the native population. Big news, Outspoken is now available as a podcast too. So please do subscribe wherever you get yours, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and make sure you rate and review. I'll take 5 stars, if you may.
Right, yeah, glass bottles and that. Look, here you go. Look, here, look, on camera, go on a glass bottle.
Go away.
Yeah, look.
Stop.
You're aggressive. You're the aggressive one. Oh, he's got a glass bottle in his hand ready to stab me.
Go away.
Oi, oi.
Go away.
Put that away now.
I say go away.
Put that away now.
Swear to my mama.
Put that away.
Go away.
You're on camera, mate. I know you don't care.
Go away.
I'm going.
I say go away.
Yeah.
Go away.
Yeah.
Go away.
All right, I'm going. No.
And patriots are increasingly deciding they have had enough.
Why would she want to play in front of you? Because we're women. We're going to go for it fucking self.
In Sadiq Khan's lawless London, chronic crime now simply accepted, with the council supporting the painting of mind the grab notices on major shopping streets, sending a very clear message: the criminals are now in control.
I'm here today on Oxford Street, where this is the state of Sadiq Khan's London. We've got a private business warning its customers and other shoppers here to keep their phones hidden because they're getting stolen all the time. Just before we got here, someone's phone was swiped. They're dealing with the consequences of it now, but this is down to Sadiq Khan. 80,000 phones stolen on London streets in the last year.
And parents now rightly fear that life-changing moment they're told an illegal migrant has in broad daylight raped their daughter. A position so importantly pointed out by the increasingly bold and brave Robert Jenrick.
In just the last 60 days, a young girl in Epping sexually assaulted, a 10-year-old in Stockport nearly kidnapped, a 12-year-old in Nuneaton raped, as was a young woman in Portsmouth and an 8-year-old in Lambeth, in each case allegedly by illegal migrants. When I hear these stories, I think these could have been one of my daughters. They are someone's daughter. It's no wonder that the public are furious. They're right to be. We're 7 years into this. 170,000 have come in, almost all young men, each one set to cost us almost £500,000. Hotels are transforming communities. No one wants to live in an area with men from backwards countries in the parks and outside the school gates. And of course, are these hotels where the politicians, the activists, the senior officials live? No, it's all a choice. Keep pouring billions down the drain and putting up with these crimes, or change our laws and deport those here illegally. People say it's more complicated than that. It's not. Australia stopped their boats in weeks. America has secured its southern border. It's about political will. It pains me the last government didn't have it. And it pains me, Starmers, even worse. Most of us are sick of not having a border, sick of all the other disasters that are unfolding, sick, frankly, of losing our country. Change the laws. Deport illegal migrants. This can't go on.
But if you are one of the poor souls who remains captured by the mainstream media, then you are told on a daily basis things are absolutely fine. No issues in Britain with crime and no illegal invasion. Indeed, the fake news agents say nothing new is going on. Apparently, we're just using different language, and that is causing this spiraling moral panic.
You feel that there is a moral panic at the moment, that this is kind of unprecedented and that things have spiralled and spun out of...
Spiral is the right word. There's
It's
this
just
sense of
gone
spiral,
mad. It's gone terribly out of control in the past few... Well, no, it's been a continuation of what we've had for years. It's just the language which is being used now is different.
Indeed, Lewis Goodall doesn't see any problem with the systematic rape of our young women after the decision to import cultures that just don't share our values. No. That isn't the problem. What the problem is the radicalization of our discourse.
And this is again the problem with the kind of radicalization of the discourse, is that it happens in its own terms, in its own bubble, in its own world. And reality, well, never the twain shall meet, right? And this is the and I think this is the bigger problem as well, with mainstream conservative centre-right politicians moving, as I say, galloping with the Overton window to what used to be the preserve of the radical right. Because what that means is that what is left for the actual far right? Where do they go? Well, they move even further to the right. And you can see this in terms of anyone who's been on X recently can see the level of profound racism which would once have been confined to the darkest corners of the mainstream internet and mainstream discourse, wouldn't have even been in public discourse, is so virulent, so ubiquitous, being rehearsed and rehashed by people who have got shows on television news channels and huge online followings, and certain academics, quote unquote, so repeating and regurgitating this stuff.
Oh, I wonder who you're referring to, little Lewis. I mean, there's so much of this denial going on. Leftist activist Zoe Gardner posted, "This is the great success of the right-wing political establishment, including Farage, and the failure of the media. We go on so effing much about boats, which make up a tiny proportion of immigration. It's constant. No wonder people are enraged." But as Fraser Myers of Spiked Online rightly responded to her, Farage doesn't want you to know this, but only a tiny proportion of goods are shoplifted compared with those that are brought legally every day. Yet we go on so effing much about thieves. Or how about Labour London leftist Sebastian Salek claiming with a straight face London is thriving and the right can't stand it. They talk down our capital constantly, but the city is measurably becoming a better place to live. Prompting Paul Joseph Watson to respond, Nobody who lives or has lived in London believes any of this tripe. It's very noticeably gone down the shitter over the last 10 years. Anyone with any sense is leaving. The way the British Bashing Corporation is handling this growing sense of unrest, when they're not talking about Gaza or Epstein, by the way, their favourite topics, is fascinating. So I want you to start by watching this straight reporting from Newsnight.
It seems at least 14 protests are due to take place later this week, various locations around England, although outside hotels used to house asylum seekers. Now, this is definitely on the radar of the Home Office. In fact, Cooper's team are telling me tonight she's been kept up to date and is regularly in touch with the National Police Chiefs Council, because obviously a protest or a public order situation is up to police chiefs to deal with them, not politicians. But there remains this real nervousness, some would even argue a sense of dread, in Number 10 and in the Home Office in different parts of Whitehall about the possibility we could see something this year similar to what we saw last year, all of that disorder, where you remember 1,800 people were arrested, 1,100 were charged. Now, there's nothing, of course, approaching that yet, but if you put together the potency of the issue of immigration, a lot of different posts on social media, plus the weather, plus people being out of school, you can see why some Matt in a government are worried and are nervous.
So I actually didn't have any problem with that straight piece of reporting. But then what the programme did was immediately wheel out a Liverpool left-wing political editor to blame the far-right bogeyman and question the language of media commentators and politicians.
We know that the far-right are organising heavily in many of these areas. We also had that in Knowsley in 2023. And I think media commentators, sort of more mainstream politicians need to be a bit more wary of their language as we see some of these scenes develop. I'm going to call again on people who are, I would consider, more on the mainstream, and I include some Conservative MPs, some commentators, political commentators. If I have to read another article from commentators saying Britain is about to blow, it's like they want it to happen. And I think that everyone needs to dial the language down. We are dealing with extremism here. We are seeing the far right openly on our streets again, which is, something that they used to be kind of cast more to the fringes of society. So I think that everyone has a responsibility, including mainstream politicians, to dial down the language, stop trying to stir things up, because otherwise we will see what we saw last summer, and we can't have that again.
I mean, how frustrating is that? How frustrating is that? They literally never want to discuss the root cause of the issue. That is too hard. But the difference this time is we've had enough of their gaslighting. I mean, anyone who saw these images of the mums of London on the streets this weekend dancing the conga knows that those far-right smears, those extremist smears, just don't cut it anymore. As these ladies said, we're not far-right, we're just always right. Shrewd voices on the centre-right, though, do see the change. I was blown away, actually, by this report from The Spectator yesterday. I want to read it to you. The Spectator writes, poll after poll shows that border control remains a top priority for the British public. This afternoon, a YouGov survey found that significantly more people are worried about immigration, 56%, than healthcare, 34%. Another poll by the same outfit found that just under half of Brits support admitting no more new migrants and requiring large numbers of migrants who came to the UK in recent years to leave. Mass deportation is an idea that has been championed by ex-Reform MP Rupert Lowe, with his stance on the issue driving a wedge between himself and his former colleagues. YouGov has called its findings extraordinary. And they illustrate what Tim Shipman, now he is the political editor of The Spectator, said this week. The Overton window has in recent years moved far, far, far to the right. So that is fascinating to me, because firstly, you've got The Spectator acknowledging it. You've got YouGov, this big polling organisation, saying these results are extraordinary. No, they're not. They're not extraordinary at all. They're completely ordinary. But what's so interesting is it's taken a very long time for the establishment and the mainstream media to catch up to where we actually all are. Now, interestingly, it's American culture that currently seems to sum up best the real feelings of Brits worried about the shocking state of our country. With the latest ad for the crypto company Coinbase the most horrifying realistic example. Spiked reported on this. Though we Brits would normally bristle at such harsh mockery from across the pond, that's not been the case here. That's because for many of us, the ad's bleak portrayal of life in 21st century Britain hits home. It certainly captures a widely held sense of national decline. The soaring cost of living has left almost half of UK adults financially insecure, up from less than a third in the same position a decade ago. One recent survey revealed that nearly 1 in 5 people struggle to pay their bills each month, while nearly half have little to nothing left over to save or spend on leisure. Now, I want you to watch this Coinbase ad. And I think you will probably imagine that it's pretty hard to disagree with the feeling it expresses, as depressing as it might be, as unpatriotic as it might be. Look. But first, you know I never recommend anything unless I truly believe in it. And today I've got something absolutely game-changing for you. Have you ever stopped to think about how crucial comfort is, especially down there? Well, let me tell you, today's Outspoken is proudly sponsored by Sheath Underwear, the revolutionary brand shaking up men's comfort across the globe. And here's what makes it even better. Sheath was founded by a brilliant US Army veteran, Robert Patton, while he was serving in Iraq back in 2007. So that's right, this isn't just an underwear brand. It was designed for the toughest conditions imaginable. Patton was battling relentless heat and discomfort in full combat gear, and he thought there has to be a better way. And there is, because he created it. Let's be honest, traditional underwear just doesn't cut it anymore. Sheath's innovative dual pouch design ensures your comfort all day long, keeping things separate, cool, and fresh. Imagine your essentials being comfortably cradled away from unwanted friction and heat. Trust me, it is a genuinely transformative product. I have tested it at the gym, on long days at work, and I'm telling you, once you've experienced Sheath, there simply is no turning back. They're stylish, they're supported, and they deliver unmatched comfort. It's like upgrading from economy to first class, but for your underwear. So right now, I am offering you a 20% discount. It is exclusive at sheath.com. So 20% off your entire order. All you have to do is use my special promo code Outspoken at checkout. Sheath is the perfect present, by the way, if you're looking for something for your husband, your son, your brother, or hard to buy for mates. But if you are a lady and you end up on the website, you will see there are female versions available too. This is really cool as well. Sheath, did you know, was the first official underwear of the UFC. So you can go to sheath.com or just click on the link below, enter Outspoken on checkout, and then you can thank me later when you're feeling comfortable, confident, and ready to tackle anything your day throws at you. Sheath underwear, redefining comfort one pair at a time. But now, back to the show.
We ain't got no troubles, no reason to complain. 'Cause here in great old Britain, we just love it when it rains. Morning. We're cozy here at home, even though it's not our own. But wait a few more years and who can say? Everything is just fine. Everything is grand. Your life can get no better when you're living by the letter in this pleasant land. Everything is just fine. Everything is great. The streets can't get no cleaner, nor the rat meat any leaner. No, life is just first rate.
Everything is just fine.
These fish fingers are a steal.
Prices up a smidge.
Just £100 a meal.
Empty purse, but hey, could be worse if there was nothing in the fridge.
Strategic realignment means I get to work for myself. Yeah!
Paying off my law degree with tips from each delivery. Excuse me, sir, I have your tandoori. Everything is just fine. Everything is grand. Your life can get no better when you're living by the letter in this pleasant land. Everything
It's time to jump ship.
We're tightening our belts with a stiff upper lip, 'cause everything's just fine.
Now, Colin Brazier is here. Colin, seriously, I think the only thing required for that ad to be more realistic was to have John Sopel and Lewis Goodall reporting around all of those activities, saying, isn't the UK great? It's just the horrible far right. I mean, it really has picked up on a mood.
Yeah, Dad, maybe they could do it when the pneumatic drill goes through the sewer and sprays everybody in shit. I mean, that would seem an appropriate juncture. The production values of that thing were fantastic. I mean, it's just incredible. And it is a reflection, in all seriousness, of the shifting Overton window, isn't it? The terms of discourse, as Lewis said, are shifting. I think he misdiagnoses the problem. They're shifting because people wanted to shift. A couple of punctuation marks. Nigel Farage 3 or 4 weeks ago talking about, invoking the idea of, quote, civil disobedience. This is the man who on current polling is destined to be our next Prime Minister, talking, and he chose his words very carefully, he always does, about civil disobedience. The other punctuation mark, just this morning, I retweeted it, you've picked up on it, you played it in full, and you did absolutely right, because it's absolutely seminal. The Robert Jenrick video. Here is a man in the shadow cabinet who could be potentially the next leader of the Conservative Party, who, if he'd said what he said in the video you just played, Dan, I think certainly 20 years ago, possibly 10 years ago, he would be booted out of the shadow cabinet. Pass those words on screen now. Extraordinary. They are stronger than anything Enoch Powell said 50 years ago. And there he is saying it. And here's the key thing. I think there'll be critics on the left will say, oh, yeah, well, he's only doing it because it's going on YouTube and Twitter. He wouldn't say it in the House. Do you know what, Dan? He would. And that's the key difference. He would say what he said on that video in the House of Commons under parliamentary privilege. So to dismiss, so-called right-wing, far-right commentators, fine, do that. It's much more difficult to dismiss our elected representatives and the leader of a party who is currently ahead in the polls.
Yeah, totally. And I think the other big moment, because I completely agree, Robert Jenrick is shifting the dial. It shows that within the Conservative Party, the Overton window is moving. Absolutely. I think he will be the next leader of that party. I think it needs to happen. But what about the political editor of The Spectator saying, look, the UK is moving far, far, far to the right? Now, he's not actually saying far right. And I like Tim Shipman, but I think he's pointed out something that the rest of the establishment have missed, like YouGov saying that it's extraordinary that a lot more people are concerned about immigration than healthcare. Not if you're outside the Westminster bubble, right?
I mean, it's an extraordinary poll in a magazine that's edited by Michael Gove, who's not known for his far-right sympathies, far from it. Look, Dan, I was in Yorkshire. I was in Leeds 4 or 5 weeks ago. I was there for the Roses cricket match between Yorkshire and Lancashire. I went with some family members and friends, and afterwards went for a drink with one of my sisters, who still lives in Bradford, having worked years ago in mills and now works on the checkout at the Co-op. And she said to me, in tears, about the state of Bradford, which I've described to you before and others as a sort of failed laboratory for multiculturalism. The time was when Bradford was particular. It's a bit like Luton, places like that. The truth is now, many of the challenges faced by a city like Bradford, sixth largest city in Britain, by the way, are now faced nationwide. I posted a tweet to that effect, saying that my sister, who lives in Bradford, was in tears, describing the trajectory, the arc of decline was the phrase that I used. And it was viewed by 1.3 million people. And what was coming across really strongly in a lot of the comments in response was not the rage that people on the left want to portray as happening. This is not about rage. Some people do feel furious. I mean, at times I feel absolutely furious about the way our future's been mishandled without our assent, how we've got a population increasing by 13 million since the turn of the century. And still we have people who deny that's going to have any impact whatsoever upon our vital infrastructure. But, a lot of people just feel terribly, terribly, terribly sad. And they're right to. Things have changed without their permission. A sense of nostalgia for the past. They say the past down is another country. They do things differently there. There is no recovering that past. But that poll, I think you pick out the generic clip exactly rightly, and you pick out that quote, that poll from YouGov as well. Not a cranky polling organisation. This is YouGov who was saying that getting on for half of this country certainly think that migration has been too high, and that perhaps some form of repatriation, that's the word they don't use, but it's what they mean, is now potentially on the cards politically. That is an extraordinary finding.
I did want to ask you about Kemi Badenoch, the current leader of the Conservative Party, Colin, because she's given an interview today to the British Bashing Corporation where she reveals the reason why she no longer has faith. Now, obviously, you're a very religious man, which is one of the reasons I wanted to play it to you, but it felt to me like a very bizarre time to go down this path. But let's watch this, and then I'll get you to react off the back.
And myself as a Christian apologist, always arguing with people about why there was a God. And in 2008, this story about Joseph Fritzl and his daughter, who was locked in a cellar for 24 years.
Elizabeth.
Yes, that killed it. Because to have the beliefs have core tenets, and one of the things that was core to the belief was that God does not test you more than you can bear. And this was, so whenever I was having a tough time, I did find strength in faith that I'm having a tough time, but I'm going to get through it because God does not test you beyond what you can bear. And I thought to myself, no human being should have had to experience what this woman believed. And maybe because I was very close to my father. So the idea of a father doing that to his own daughter, for me, was a level of disgust and abhorrence that I'd never experienced. And I couldn't stop reading the story. And, I read her account, how she prayed, every day to be rescued. And I thought, I was praying for all sorts of stupid things, and I was getting my prayers answered. I was praying to have good grades, my hair should grow longer, and I would pray for the bus to come on time so I wouldn't miss something. It's like, why were those prayers answered and not this woman's prayers? And it was like someone blew out a candle.
I mean, pretty sad watching that in a lot of ways, Colin. But how do you feel about that revelation from Kemi Badenoch?
Well, I think it's candid. I think it's honest. I think that does her credit. I think we want politicians to be honest about what makes them the people they become. I like him, Amal Rajan. I think he's a really inquiring, thoughtful, heretical thinker. I think I woke up in the night thinking about lots of things. One of the things that popped into my head was that dreadful story from 2 or 3 days ago, Dan, about a dad who I think he was on the Spanish coast, and he was swimming in the Atlantic with his 2 young sons, both of whom perished in the waves, and he was badly injured. Why does a good God do terrible things to good people? That's a question that's haunted people since the beginning of time, and certainly since the beginning of Christianity. I would simply say this. In the 20th century, when we decided to do away with God, we did a very good job of making life more miserable than it ever had been. Maoism, communism, and fascism collectively killed about 100 million of our fellow human beings. They'd all banished the idea of Christian belief, of any religious belief for that matter.
Absolutely fascinating, isn't it? But I do just wonder if Kemi ever gets it right in terms of her timing and in terms of whether this was what we needed to hear from her. But yes, candid, I agree. And I guess we should always praise our politicians for being candid. Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews, and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.